Hey everybody, welcome back to Challenge Call with Max and Avery. I'm your host Max.
And I am Avery. How are you guys?
All right, coming at you another Wednesday night, middle of the week. Exciting football games just happened. Biggest football game in the year about to happen. But before that, we're going to get into some sports news. Avery, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. I am working a lot, but I'm also teaching, and I had a field trip today, so that was cool. I was on a school bus for the first time in years. Yeah, it was a fun time, but having kids outside of the classroom and trying to watch them in public is a nightmare. I just wanted a beer at the end of the day. I was so burnt out, but yeah, it was a fun day.
Well, field trips are always fun. Maybe they're not as fun as an adult. I don't know, but back when I was in school, field trips were the best.
Yeah, I used to love field trips as a kid, but yeah, as a teacher, no, I'm good. I'd rather just stay in the classroom. How's your night?
Not too bad. Got home just a little bit ago. I had to do game day management, which every coach gets assigned different sporting events out of their season. So I managed a basketball game today, which basically means I walk the other team to the locker room. I show the refs where their locker room is, and I kind of bring them up and down during halftime and at the end of the game. So watched a basketball game tonight. It was interesting. It was sad. They lost after being up 20 points. But yeah, worst things have happened. It was Grinnell, which actually Grinnell runs a very, very weird. It's called the system. Literally, they just rain down threes. It's the whole thing is they rain down threes and they full court press everything. Always full court pressing. And like I said, we were up about 20, which means you just have to kind of slow down, possess the ball, be careful with it, whatever. And our guys, Grinnell pushed us into kind of a fast tempo that they just, it sped them up. They got turnovers. They had some missed shots that they shouldn't have taken. And it kind of bite them in the butt at the end of the game. So that was a rough one to watch. But I'm ready to do this.
Dude, okay. Well, I have a funny stat with Grinnell.
All right.
12 years ago, there was a player for Grinnell that was all over ESPN that scored 138 points in one game. So just a fun statistic. He even got a shout out 12 years ago.
That's because they rain threes. They literally just they get to the 3-point line and chuck it up. That's what they do. But no, when you get some athletes, it's almost kind of like triple option, when you just have the pure athletes that can kind of do it, it's great. If you don't, it's horrible. But yeah, it's a weird thing to watch. It's very strange. But moving on into podcast content, we've got some sports news coming at you. First little bit of news we got is some baseball news. Avery, take it away.
So the Oakland A's, man, are moving to Las Vegas and becoming the Las Vegas A's. This is a pretty big deal. I mean, we haven't seen a team move in MLB in a long time. And this is also another interesting thing because Oakland a few years ago lost the Raiders in the NFL. And they lost them to Las Vegas. And now they're losing another professional sports team, which leaves none there. I mean, you can kind of say Golden State Warriors, but that's more San Francisco than Oakland. But yeah, so they don't have really a professional sports team in Oakland anymore, which is nuts. But
that is kind of tough, but I'm not wildly against these kind of moves, there's nothing going on in Nevada. California's chock loaded with teams. I don't know baseball wise, but they had 4 football teams, professional. So I'm yeah, give another state a team and, move around some fandoms a little bit, spread things out some. But yeah, it is kind of wild to see another team leaving the one city, exact same city, to go to the exact other.
Dude, it's nuts. But yeah, like you said, for MLB, they already have 3 teams in California. So seeing another team leave, I mean, it just kind of balances out the map pretty much. And it's okay, Vegas, they do deserve probably 2 professional sports teams there. So it makes sense at the end of the day.
Definitely. No, I'm a big supporter of Vegas getting this kind of nod and stuff. But moving away from that, we'll get into some of the football news we got going on here. A lot of different coaching hires going on currently. First one we're going to talk about Seattle Seahawks. They are actually taking the Ravens defensive coordinator in place of, oh my God, I cannot, Pete Carroll. Couldn't remember his name for a second. In place of Pete Carroll. I don't know how many people Seattle's actually lost, but I know they lost Pete Carroll, and we know that they lost Shane, what's his name, because he's our Waldron. He's our offensive coordinator now. So it seems like they're kind of rebuilding the coaching staff. But what do you think of Mike McDaniel, Ravens DC, taking over that job?
Yeah, McDonald, I think it is. Mike McDonald. I mean, he really led Baltimore to a very, very successful year. I mean, that defense was the number one defense. They literally held one of the best teams to 17 points. I think he's going to do big things. And I also think Pete Carroll, he's an offensive-minded head coach. And they've been an offensive-minded organization for a long time now. So, like, kind of seeing the transition into more of a defensive-loaded coaching, like, it is a breath of fresh air in Seattle. So I'm interested to see how it'll work. I think there's going to be growing pains, but at the end of the day, Seattle passed him up over Dan Quinn and a couple other guys. So
there's always going to be growing pains when you're hiring new coaches, especially coaches who are not previous head coaches. Like, it can be one thing to take a head coach from somewhere and bring him on as a head coach here, but it's a whole other story to take a coordinator, bring him on as a head coach, because now they have to kind of be concerned with all different facets of the game. On top of, like we've always talked about, head coach, you are big decisions, you are culture, you are all that kind of stuff. So they'll be defensive minded for sure, but at the same time, there's going to be growing pains with the offense. They just lost their OC. They brought in a defensive head coach. You got to wonder how that's going to affect the offense as a whole going into next year.
Oh, 100%. And I think you're going to see a whole new team in Seattle. Like, I don't think Geno Smith's going to be the starting quarterback next year. I don't think a lot of things are going to be different in Seattle. So it's going to be interesting and like a changing of the guard in the NFC West. And he's joining a conference that's loaded in coaching. Like, you got not Jim Harbaugh, but you got Sean McVay, you got Kyle Shanahan. Like, Jonathan Gannon didn't do bad for the Cardinals this year. So let's see how Mac McDonald can stand up with like these other prominent coaches.
Definitely. Next bit of news, not a coaching change per se, but a nice non-change to see that's a little different than all the changes that we've been seeing. Ben Johnson is actually deciding to stay in Detroit with the Lions. He turned down the Seattle position as well as Washington so that he could stay in Detroit and continue on with the talent that he has there. I like that. As fun as it is to see guys go and get their shot, it can be more fun sometimes to like see them stay where it's hot. Like, if you think Detroit's not ready to compete for a Super Bowl next year, like, you'd be crazy to leave that right now.
Oh, 100%. So, like, I see both sides of this, right? I see the Ben Johnson staying in Detroit. Like, they have unfinished business, and I really enjoy that they have unfinished business, especially how close they came. And Ben Johnson was, like, one of the prominent reasons why. That offense was humming under Ben Johnson's play calling. Like, Dan Campbell, people forget, he's not an offensive coordinator. He's not a defensive coordinator. He's not a special teams guy. He's a leader of men as a head coach. Ben Johnson's the mastermind of that offense, and they looked really good under Ben Johnson. So I love seeing him stay in Detroit. At the same side, we saw this 2 years ago with Eric Bieniemy in Kansas City. We saw Eric Bieniemy like call a great game plan under Andy Reid, and he went to Washington to prove himself that, hey, I can be the guy as the OC, of course. Little different, more of a lateral move, but he wanted to get under the shadow of Andy Reid. And it didn't pan out in Washington. And now he's looking for a new job, like at this moment as an offensive coordinator. So at the end of the day, like I do respect the decision, and I think Ben Johnson's, but he's making a big gamble on himself.
Definitely. Um, Yeah, I like him sticking around. That is the only bit of news I've actually seen where someone has stayed. Everything else I've seen is like so and so goes here, so and so goes there. They moved, went somewhere else. It's refreshing to see someone actually staying put, especially when things are going well. Like Detroit Lions are going so well. He's a big part of that, and I'm glad he's sticking around for it. But some more coordinator news that we have. Kind of. This is head coach. But Panthers hired Dave. How do you say his name?
Canellis. Dave
Canales.
Canellis is going. Yeah, he's going to Carolina. I like this move, but at the same time, I think it's too soon for him. Like with Dave Canellis, he's done a couple of things really well. 2 years ago, he was actually the Seattle Seahawks quarterback coach under Shane Waldron. He took the offensive coordinating position in Tampa, and he turned around Baker Mayfield this year. Baker had a very, very damn good year. But I think it's too soon to be a head coach. I think it's similar to the Ben Johnson if he would have taken one of it's kind of that unproven guy. What can you do? But at the same time, it goes back to they don't know. Dave Canellis, he doesn't know what type of guy David Tepper is, their owner. And that's the part that scares me because David Tepper has given up on 3 coaches throughout the last 3 years. And as an unproven guy, you're going to go and take that job. He'll fire you if you're not like successful.
Oh yeah, and he already just like you said, he's unproven. It's a little too soon, and on top of all that, you're not moving into a good spot. Like you're going
No.
to the Panthers, who are in a very, very rough place right now. And so to be a young guy kind of trying to figure out who he is as a head coach, going to a place like that, that's just going to put him through the fucking grinder every day, all season long and all off season as he gets judged on like, okay, how are you turning around this team? Are you going to do any better? Like, oh, you're not doing any better right now. Like that's a huge amount of pressure, especially for a coach who, like you said, is unproven and young and just, it might be a too soon kind of move.
Oh, dude, 1,000,000%. That's what I don't like about it because, like I mentioned, David Tepper, he fired Frank Reich, he fired Matt Rule last year, and he fired Ron Rivera 3 years ago. So 3 coaches within the last 3 years, like there's no job security in that position right now. And I would not want to take that coaching position. And I think that's why they did get this guy. And they didn't get like a guy like Ben Johnson. They didn't get a guy like Mike Vrabel. They didn't get Bill Belichick because all 3 of those guys are like, I don't want to go coach there. There's no security there. If you don't win, and guess what? You don't even have a first round pick. That's the worst part. You don't even have a guy that you can bring in. You don't have any building blocks, at least this first year. And I think it's just a really, really shitty job for a head coach right now.
Speaking of not having that first round pick, as we all know, it went to the Bears. The Bears have actually taken another piece of that Panthers offense for themselves. The Bears have hired, looking for, oh, I don't know his name. The Bears have hired the Panthers offensive coordinator to be their wide receiver coach / pass game coordinator. He's actually worked with Shane Waldron in Seattle at one time. I don't know exactly when, but he does have a little bit of a history there, as most coaches do, which is why you get brought on like that. But so we have a new wide receiver coach from the Panthers, where we also got DJ Moore. So, I'm kind of excited to see that.
Dude, I'm actually pumped about Thomas Brown coming to Chicago. Thomas Brown, he's going to be a very, very great addition to Chicago. Yeah, he wasn't that great as a coordinator, but the Panthers were just the dumpster fire last year. Just the absolute dumpster fire. But prior to him being the OC, he was the assistant head coach in Los Angeles. So I think that's just like one of like another perks. He worked under Sean McVay. And I think that's just another really great aspect of, okay, Thomas Brown, you know what you're doing. You just got the wrong end of a draw there with Carolina.
Definitely. And the thing is, too, like, we're not hiring him as an offensive coordinator. We've got the offensive coordinator.
No.
He's just going to be wide receivers coach and pass game coordinator. So we have a couple levels above him that we're truly running the big decisions through. He's just more of that like functional, making sure everything works, blah, 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 kind of in Shane Waldron's ear a little bit when it comes to passing the ball type of guy. So I think he can have huge success there. And I'm excited to see it.
For sure. Yeah. I'm excited for Thomas Brown to come.
Speaking once again about that first round pick, going into that kind of relevant Bears news with what are the Bears going to do with their first round pick, there's actually been a lot of news lately about Sean Payton wanting Caleb Williams and willing to trade up to that first round pick to get him. What do you think of the Bears trading with the Broncos? I don't know where the Broncos stand in their order.
Yeah, dude. This report came out today, and I don't know if it's just another like smoke screen out there, but as of right now, the Broncos are drafting. I'm looking right now. Position. Let me look.
Broncos are 12th.
Yeah, so the Broncos are 12th right now, and I think this is like, to be honest, I wouldn't mind falling back to 12. Like, I mean, but you got to give us somebody like Patrick Surtain, maybe like a cornerback that could also solidify our defense. Big news: we cut Eddie Jackson. Eddie Jackson is not going to be a Bear next year, but he was a liability on that defensive side of the ball. We saw that in the Green Bay game. He's just getting older, and
he's like, aging out of the position. Yeah, he's definitely aging.
But like, yeah. So like, if we could get another guy like Patrick Surtain in our secondary, that could be huge. So if we traded the number 1 pick to the Broncos, we got their 12th, we got their first rounder next year, and Patrick Surtain, that could be a very, very, very successful defense, for one, because it adds another piece. And two, it pushes us back to 12. And as we mentioned before, if you're not fully certified on Justin Fields, that's fine. But at 12, there's probably going to be a quarterback like Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix there that you can take, or J.J. McCarthy that you could take, that could help transition into a new quarterback the following year. And let Justin's contract play out.
My only problem with it is that you lose Marvin Harrison Jr. if you drop back that far. He's going top 5. If you don't keep yourself in the top 5, you're missing out on that. And I know like we're losing Eddie Jackson and we want to make sure our defensive is running right and whatnot, whatever. But also work on the fucking offense. The defense wasn't losing us game all season long. The fucking offense was. So as great as it would be to replace a DB in the backfield and solidify our defense, how about we start with liquefying our offense? Because right now they're at gas and they're all over the place. We need to solid that up first.
Which I also agree. But at the same time, like, there's a couple other receivers not named Marvin Harrison in this draft class. Malik Neighbors from LSU, we've mentioned him before. He's a dynamic playmaker. I think he could go at that 12th spot. Washington's wide receiver, Osunda, he's a stud and he's a physical freak out there. He reminds me of DK Metcalf. So we could draft him at 12. So, like, I don't think necessarily, like, it's the end of the world if we did not get Marvin Harrison. But at the same time, it doesn't mean we couldn't package our number 9 pick and our number 12 and move back up to number 3 and go get Marvin Harrison. So that's a possibility too. So, I mean, I think just like the liquefying the picks on top of it, I think it might not be Marvin Harrison specifically, but it could be a guy like Marvin Harrison or just a step lower that could help out our wide receiver room.
I think.
What are your thoughts?
I think the draw just with Marvin Harrison Jr. specifically is coming from the same place as Fields. Like, he knows Justin Fields. Like, they have a little bit of a connection there already previously. Now, does that translate to the NFL? Does that make any difference if we have a solid wide receiver in there that gets to know Justin and does a bang-up job and all that? Probably not. But at the same time, just there's something about Marvin Harrison Jr. feels like a very safe grab, whereas we grab someone else, and I don't know. I feel like there's a huge potential we get into a Willis Jones situation all over again.
That's true. I mean, but Velus Jones was a third round pick, so I mean, there's a reason why he was a third round pick. As these other guys I mentioned have a first round grade on them. Um, but at the same time, what is your perspective of Caleb Williams, possibly a Bronco? Like, I know the Broncos are your second favorite team, so let's hear it.
I don't mind that horribly. I still don't like Caleb Williams just from a like personality standpoint, and I think he's a diva, and I do not like that aspect of him. Now, our offensive coordinator keeps saying it. All the analysts are ranking him to be a super good, like potentially the best quarterback in the NFL, something or other. He's going to be great, great, great. There's only one guy, one analyst that's saying he's unsure. And so at the end of the day, I think him as a Bronco, if he goes and he has a bunch of success with them, like I'm going to feel good. I'm going to be happy for the Broncos, like doing well, having some success and getting the job done. Um, because I like to follow them as a team. I think it's cool when they do good, but I'm not necessarily wildly emotionally attached to them. Whereas the Bears, I am very emotionally attached to. And even if you were doing the same or similar thing for the Bears, a part of me would still be like, God, I fucking hate this guy.
I love that perspective of things right there. Just like the Raiders for me. Like I follow the Raiders. I will watch a Raiders game if it's on TV over anything else other than the Bears. But at the same time, like I'm not emotionally connected to them. So like I understand where you're coming from. Like the Bears, so when they lose, I mourn that game. Like I am upset, I'm pissed off, I'm frustrated, and when they win that game, I feel like I just won that game. And I think
Well,
that's
and
what true fandom is.
the big key to that and stuff too is like going to be post game conferences or is going to be like what's happening outside of that game atmosphere. We see like clips and stuff of Justin all the time. He's a locker room guy. The guys love him. Like an amazing character off of the field. Caleb Williams, win as many games with the Broncos as you want. That's great. But I don't have to be invested in anything going on outside of that because I don't have that same level of like emotional commitment to them where it's like, oh, Caleb Williams doing dumb shit like outside of football. I'll be like, yeah, well, deserves some fucking right. Like that's the kind of guy he is.
Yep. And that's fair, 100%. But no, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, the combine starts this upcoming month. By the time this is released, it'll be February 1st. And it starts February 17th. So we're going to just see more and more smoke screens. This could be a smoke screen, to be honest. This could be another smoke screen saying, hey, another team is very, very interested. We're going to go up and try to get this guy. Caleb Williams still very, very, very well lead, like could be a Chicago Bear at the end of the day.
Yeah, he could be. And I can't remember if you ever mentioned this or if it was just people at work. Did you ever say anything about the Bears like picking up Kirk Cousins, like grabbing a veteran and then grabbing someone below him, etc.?
Yeah, I've mentioned it. I think you said people at your work have mentioned it also. Yeah. I mean, I could very well see that too.
So just a bit of news with that and whatever. I don't think that's a great option right now anymore, at least, because Kirk Cousins is actually asking for $45 million the next 2 years. So $90 million total guaranteed for a 2-year contract to play. That's a lot. And I don't know if Kirk Cousins is good. I'd have to look at what some of the other quarterbacks in the league are making, but I can't help but think I don't know if you're worth that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he is. I mean, but at the same time, like, he is a solidified guy. Like, he will make your offense better at that position. I think as of right now, I think Kirk Cousins is better than Justin Fields in a way, in a sense, especially because he's been there. He knows what he's doing. and he's a fully polished prospect. But I also still think Justin Fields' ceiling is so much higher than Kirk Cousins could be. And to be honest, I think Caleb Williams' ceiling is a lot higher than what Kirk Cousins' ceiling is. So, like, at the end of the day, I don't know if that's the best option or best course of action, especially with Chicago Bears right now. But our team also has slowly moved into that win now team, which is very weird because a couple of years ago we were not anywhere close. But our defense has fully kind of came around and we look really successful, and our offense has the pieces to be a win now team. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it is a good move.
I don't know. I don't want to pay that kind of money for Kirk Cousins. I would rather either keep Fields. He's still making relatively, he's a relatively cheap option still, even with his experience. Or you draft a new guy and he can easily have a rookie contract and it's whatever. He's a new guy. It's going to be cheap. And we could get Caleb Williams, who potentially could be a really, really good quarterback. Or we could get someone like a Bo Nix or a Jaden Daniels later on that we're going to develop and still. Like, I don't see doing any sort of that kind of pay or spending that much money on something so short term. I think our money needs to be spent long term. We should be focusing long term. I know I get what you're saying with the whole win now perspective, but at the same time, I don't think that's worth that much money to just win now.
That's fair, and I think that's a good perspective to look at it. But speaking of like win now, and we're bringing a new offensive coordinator into Iowa City, and Tim Lester. What do you think of this move?
This is going to be really interesting because Tim Lester is like a big option motions kind of guy. So it's going to be interesting seeing how that changes Iowa's run game or just Iowa's game in general as a team that not super often has more than 1-2 wide receivers on the field. Tim Lester always has like 2 receivers on the field and they're always moving around, motioning somewhere. Just to get into this guy a little bit, he previously was a head coach at Western Michigan is where we're taking him from. And his record isn't anything crazy. You know what I mean? Like, his record is okay. He's about 500, which they say if you coach long enough, you're going to end up about 500. My issue is I don't know if he's coached long enough to necessarily be able to say that about him.
That's fair. I mean, I don't know much about him. The only thing I really know is he was a senior analyst for the Green Bay Packers last year. So that's going to be interesting to kind of see him coming from the NFL level back down to college, especially as an offense coordinating position at Iowa.
Yeah. Well, so to go through his coaching history a little bit, just because I think this is interesting to me. He started his head coaching. We'll get straight into his head coaching. Won't worry about anything other than that. But he started out at a Division II school, St. Joseph's, where he went 7-4. So like I said, pretty average record, kind of whatever. That was in 2004. Then he went to Elmhurst, and he was the head coach at Elmhurst for about 5 years. 5 years. This is where it gets interesting. Elmhurst, little Division III school, such as myself, but his record at Elmhurst technically is 23-19, so right about 500. But in the 2012 season, the record reads as 0-2, and then parentheses says 10 wins vacated. In 2012, Elmhurst actually won the conference and went on to the Division III quarterfinals in the playoffs. So they truly went 10-2, but they had to vacate the 10 wins because of a lot of scandal going on with like paying players.
That's strange. I mean, nowadays that wouldn't even matter. NIL, like that wouldn't even matter.
Well, see, yeah. The key where this comes in, though, is this is a Division III school. You are not allowed to scholarship athletes in a Division III school. Scholarships have to be academic. But they were doing some sort of weird twist where it was like student athletes participating in something or other, like in this medical field or in a certain degree, or the key was like student athletes doing something else or another could get a scholarship. Like that's fairly common, like, hey, if you're going in the medical field, we have this medical field scholarship for you. But the key thing with that is they were giving it to only a student athlete. Being a student athlete was another factor on that scholarship, and that's what made it illegal.
Yeah, that's fucked up. I mean, in a way, to everybody else at that university or that college that he would coach at, like that's kind of fucked up because, like, if you're Joe Blow from the football team, yeah, you get that scholarship. It doesn't matter what this guy's resume kind of looked at. So yeah, no, that's interesting to kind of do a deep dive into.
And that takes away the one ring that he actually has. That would be the only championship ring as a coach, I should say. Takes away that ring, which is kind of like. So I don't know. I had mixed feelings on hiring him just based off record, kind of like this alone. I thought that was a super interesting thing I ran across. But the other aspect of it too is like those scholarships and the stuff they were doing and all that, whatever, started in like 2013. Like that scholarship was created in 2013 after the football season was already played, after like he had already won the conference and all that stuff. So you have to take that with a big asterisk. Like he won the conference, but it got vacated because of these scholarships. But those scholarships actually came after he won the conference. So it's not like they actually, helped him any.
For sure. Yeah, no, that's kind of crazy to think about. But no, I'm excited to see what he can do in Iowa. I'm really excited to see. I mean, it's going to be a change of pace from Brian Ferentz, so I'm pumped.
Definitely. I'm super pumped to see what he can do. And I mean, at the end of the day, we got to give him a shot, right? Like all we can do is give him a shot and see if he can get Iowa's offense humming. If he even gets that much control over Iowa's offense compared to Kirk, because Kirk could still run the whole show.
To be honest, I think that's what's going to happen. I think that's why Kirk didn't bring in a big name guy. I think Tim Lester is that kind of perfect, hey, you watch back from like a distance and you can run a couple of things with our offense, but necessarily you're not going to run this team. Like I'm still the head coach. I still have jurisdiction on what says, what goes. And I think Kirk's going to have the final say on everything that goes out on that field.
Yeah, same here. I think he's making a very big jump into a coordinator position in a Big Ten, Power 5 school, but not even just a Power 5 school, the Big Ten, like which is rivals with the SEC. I know that's what everyone's been talking about. Just to finish up his kind of head coaching lineage here. After that, he was at Western Michigan for 6 years, and his total at Western Michigan was 37-32. So total, that puts his win-loss record as a head coach at 67-55. Now, we didn't hire him as a head coach, so, not saying that's necessarily wildly important. He's only a coordinator. But at the same time, part of me is like, I don't know. I think you're right with this hire, with Kirk being more in control, because this definitely seems like the kind of hire you make when it's like, you're a guy that we just need to tell what to do. We don't want somebody to bring anything wild in. We want somebody that we can tell what to do. And this is that guy.
100%. And it's going to be exciting to see. But at the same time, do you think we even have the personnel for this type of offensive style that he's bringing in? The 2 wide receivers, the 3, the motion. I don't know if we do. I don't know if it fits us.
It would probably take a little bit of development from that standpoint. Like, we got receivers, don't get me wrong. We got Caleb Brown, and we've got Caleb Brown. But we'll see who we can get. Yeah. No, he's graduating, isn't he? He's gone.
Yeah, so we don't even got Ragini.
Yeah. But regardless, though, maybe we can grab someone in recruiting. You would think bringing in an OC and thinking the offense is going to transform and going to change would have a little bit more draw with getting people. We might be hitting transfer portal heavy. There might be some super talented receivers in the transfer portal, maybe leaving Alabama, Saban left. Michigan because of Harbaugh. Exactly. So I bet you there's guys out there that we could potentially grab just knowing like, hey, here's the OC now. We're like not doing what I was always done. At least that's the storyline. And so maybe you can kind of convince a little bit more skilled talent to get there.
For sure. Which that's the hope, right? That at the end of the day, that's the hope.
Yeah, but moving on from that, we are finally going to get into our NFL recap. We have had the AFC and the NFC championship games take place to determine who is going to be facing off in the Super Bowl. First game we had was the Ravens Chiefs. Chiefs unfortunately won it 17-10. How'd you feel about that game and how was watching it, etc.? What are your thoughts?
Dude, I hated it. Every ounce of it, I hated it because we still have not seen the Kansas City Chiefs play their best football. At the end of the day, we still have not seen Patrick Mahomes look like Patrick Mahomes. Right now, there's a lot of talk about Brock Purdy being a game manager, but right now, Patrick Mahomes looks like a game manager. I hate to say that, but he looks like a very, very successful game manager, but he still looks like a game manager. There's no deep shots. I mean, yeah, the Travis Kelsey, Patrick Mahomes connection was in like really good in the AFC championship and they looked really great. But at the end of the day, man, the Chiefs are going back to the fucking Super Bowl. The Ravens sucked. Their offense was non existent.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to the Raven. Like they came in as such a powerhouse team. They had the best record in the league. They were firing on all cylinders, and then just the Chiefs happened. I guess there was a couple of things. Penalties in my head didn't wildly skew Chiefs. There were a couple that were kind of like okay, iffy. Like Isaiah Likely definitely. I forget if it was toward the end of the game or end of the half, but there was just like an egregious holding on him that wasn't
Mm-hmm.
called. It was just nothing. And
Yeah.
so I think penalties played into it slightly, but I don't know if they played in wildly enough to say like, oh, this is all the refs doing.
For sure. The one thing with this too is it goes back to experience. I mean, you look at it, Zay Flowers fumbling across the goal line. He's a rookie. He's not been in that situation, but that's just a football play. You hold that ball tight. He let that pop out. That was a great play by the defense of the Kansas City Chiefs. But at the end of the day, man, the Ravens killed themselves. Lamar Jackson did not look like Lamar Jackson. And two, they got away from what they did best this year, running the fucking football. They didn't run the football. They tried to pass heavy in the second half, and it just did not work. And at the end of the day, dude, the Chiefs capitalized, and they're going back to the fucking Super Bowl.
Well, and you want to talk about experience, and here's a fun little kind of nod or whatever you could say. The Chiefs, since Patrick Mahomes has been in the NFL, have been in the conference championship game, if not the Super Bowl, every year.
Yep.
Patrick Mahomes, experience wise, has played almost an extra season than compared to every other quarterback in his draft class, just based off of playoff games alone. And not even to mention that, but just there's something about Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. When you look at his regular season stats, they're all right. They're a good quarterback. He's solid. But when you look at his postseason stats, it's like this isn't the same guy. He gets so much better in the postseason, and it's like, dude, are you not trying or something during the regular season? Are you fucking around during the regular season and like serious up in the postseason? Or like what is with this crazy difference and improvement in stats once postseason hits?
Dude, honestly, and I've noticed that too. I think it's just that the game's too easy for Pat. It's so crazy to think about. One thing with the Chiefs, they have officially reached the New England Patriot dynasty level. Right now, like they have their quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, comparable to Tom Brady. Right now, he's neck and neck with Tom Brady. Like there's a good chance that he surpasses Tom Brady's in Super Bowls. Like in we 3 years ago, we would have thought that was just unreal. Like, no one's going to pass Tom Brady, the great Tom Brady, in Super Bowls. Two, he has a damn good head coach that is a player's coach, Bill Belichick, Andy Reid. Like, meet each other. He has a great offensive coordinator, which I hate to say, but Matt Nagy's kind of figured it out again. Back in Kansas City. Well, guess who also was a failed head coach many times, but has also figured it out in New England? Josh McDaniels. I mean, you got the tight end connection. You got Travis Kelsey. Tom Brady had Gronk. I mean, at the end of the day, you had a running back by committee in New England all those years. There was never a solidified running back. You got Pacheco and Allaire, and McKinnon. You got so many different contexts, and you got an unproven wide receiver core that Tom Brady played his whole career with, unproven, except for Julian Edelman. But that kind of looks like Julian Edelman and Rashee Rice are similar players. So, I mean, at the end of
Speaking
the day,
speaking of that wide receiver core, Kadarius Toney's been hurt so far in the postseason. He ain't hurt. He
no,
has
he's not
said
hurt.
before that he is not hurt, but it's too you can't cut him because they're already paying for him. Once you reach a certain like age or whatever in the league, you get paid day one right off. So what are your thoughts on Kadarius Toney being hurt all postseason and just like being like, I'm not hurt. This is bullshit.
To be honest, I think Andy Reid was trying to do that for Kadarius Toney's for his next team. I don't think they wanted. He didn't. Andy Reid didn't want him to get a bad rap. Well, that's kind of cat's out of the bag because Tony came out and said, "Hey, I'm not hurt." But at the end of the day, Andy Reid was trying to protect your future, dude. Saying you're hurt throughout the postseason, it comes off better than you not being hurt. So that's my perspective on it. I think Tony's a dumbass, and he does not belong on that field right now. He would legitimately hurt them in every single way on their way to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I didn't think about it from that standpoint of a dude. Why did you just fucking out yourself?
Yeah,
Like that genuinely was kind of a favor to you. It's not saving the Chiefs' face at all. The Chiefs aren't embarrassed that like they grabbed you and like are trying to play you and you didn't work out. They don't care. They just want the right guy in, which they got in. This was saving face for you, and you
yeah,
had to go out there and be like, nah, they just stopped playing me because I'm bad. Like, why did you just say that to everybody?
yeah. Because I guarantee he's not going to get another contract, or if he does get another contract, it's going to be a very minimum veteran contract. It's going to be like 700K. Come see if you can make this squad. Be a
he's
special
gonna get
teams player.
he's gonna get a practice squad offer and be like, hey, come join the practice squad and friggin' whatever team.
Yeah, on the Jaguars or something,
Yeah.
somebody random that just not in contention at all. But no, the Chiefs, man. As much as I hate it, you got to give them their flowers. They made it back, especially after having such a off year for Patrick Mahomes, as you alluded to. He did not look good in the regular season. I mean, but they're back. They're in the Super Bowl, and all the Swifty fans can go watch the Super Bowl this next week.
Did you see that there was like a whole thing of like, can Taylor Swift make it to the Super Bowl because she is in tour in like Tokyo or something and on her Eras tour, and one of the dates is February 10th and she has a concert at 6 on the 10th in Tokyo. Like, is she going to be able to make it to the Super Bowl? Long story short, she can. Time difference helps her out. But that was just like a whole thing. But one more thing on this game. Did you see Lamar Jackson's pass to Lamar Jackson?
Dude, I loved it. I thought, okay, so that pass happened. I'm like, oh, the Ravens are going to win this game. It felt like everything was in their favor. I mean, the batted ball down to Lamar Jackson. He got 13 yards out of it. I think he's the only quarterback, minus probably Justin Fields, that could probably complete a pass to himself and take it for more than 5 yards. And he
True.
did it. I mean, it was impressive.
Like,
Um,
they talk about him being a passer and being a runner, but shit, this is the first time I've seen him as a receiver, and he's just doing it on all levels.
For sure. I want to talk about one more thing with this game before we move on. And it's kind of Bears related also. And I think I alluded to it last week that this game was essentially almost kind of like a career arc of Justin Fields in a way. Because we've compared Justin Fields to Lamar Jackson, right? Everybody since Justin Fields has came into the league is compared to Lamar Jackson. And at Justin Fields' height like at his ceiling, that's Lamar Jackson. And Caleb Williams, everybody is comparing him to Patrick Mahomes. Do you want a quarterback that's going to be like Lamar Jackson in that type of game and that just folds under pressure and does not perform up to what he's done throughout his whole career, throughout his whole season? He's about to be MVP again, which I mean, he's a really good regular season quarterback. Or do you want a guy that can do it in the playoffs, that can make every single throw, but that can also manage a game perfectly, that can also kind of lead you to victory in a Patrick Mahomes? And I don't know if that's like the best comparison, but it almost kind of goes back to that Justin Fields or Caleb Williams debate.
I think it goes into you like obviously you want the postseason guy. Like Patrick Mahomes was still good in the regular season. They still made it to the playoffs. So as long as you make it to the playoffs and then you can like be a playoff guy, that's ideal. The issue is if you're a playoff guy, but your team never gets there because you can't get there in the regular season. But as far as like the Lamar and Justin comparison goes, based on this game against the Chiefs, I think Justin is a way better passer than Lamar.
I
Lamar
agree.
easily wins this game if he doesn't throw every fucking fade 10 miles past the receiver.
No, I agree. And it just brought me back to a play that he made during this game. One of the plays that he made during this game literally was like a 40-yard bomb. And I don't even, maybe it was the OBJ. I don't know. It was in the fourth quarter. And it wasn't even a bomb. It was a rainbow, but nobody was near OBJ. And so, like, that's why it was completed for like a 40-yard gain. And I just, like, I was picturing him like Justin Fields made that throw before, and it's been right on the money. And so, like, just seeing that aspect of things, I was like, what is going on right now? But at the end of the day, man, like, I think you're right. Like, I still think Justin Fields is a better passer than Lamar Jackson, at least from what he put on the field. I think Lamar needs to work on his passing skills.
Sorry, everybody, we're running into some technical issues right now with our recording platform, but no, totally. And there's a whole lot of other passes that he didn't complete. Like, that one was at least completed and stuff. There were a bunch of others that were just nowhere near the receiver, way over the top of their heads, just thrown away practically. And Justin's been harped on a little bit for not being a passer, but we've seen Justin put some dimes on people before. And it's just, I don't know if it's consistent. Maybe it's not super consistent and that's what people are harping about. But to me, it seems like Lamar is pretty consistently off, which is worse.
Dude, and I think you are like spot on with what you're saying right now because like at the end of the day, like you said it yourself. Justin Fields can put that ball on the money. We saw him throw ball after ball, especially during our win streak. Like that one to DJ Moore that he took to the house that he threw right outside the edge of the defender, and DJ Moore took it to the house. And like he can put that ball on the money when he needs to. And that's something that he's learning through progression. But what I saw from Lamar Jackson is that he had no accuracy whatsoever. And I think the reason is like the MVP, like why he's won MVP twice is because of his legs and because he has a damn good defense and he has a great offensive line and a running game and a good coach. And you give Justin Fields all that too. I think he could play better in a situation like that than Lamar Jackson ever could.
Definitely. Like you said, something about Justin Fields' ceiling being Lamar. I don't think that's true at all. Lamar is not the ceiling for Justin. Justin is has the potential to peak far above Lamar.
Shoot, at this point, man, like from what I saw from Lamar Jackson, I think Justin Fields' potential could be Josh Allen. I truly do. Like, I think he's closer to Josh Allen than he is Lamar Jackson.
Because we've said that earlier in his career too, because everyone was comparing him to Lamar, and we were like, they're only saying that because he runs the football. But you know who he really is? Josh Allen.
100%. And he's a gamer too. Like Josh Allen, he's a gamer. He'll throw a couple of balls up and yeah, they might be picks, but he'll come back and he won't be afraid to throw that ball again. And I think that's the part where Justin still needs to learn. I think he still kind of gets into his head when he throws a pick, and then a couple of drives, he'll be lackadaisical or he won't be as efficient. But I think he does come off strong. But to the other quarterback on the other side, Patrick Mahomes, man, like it does talk about a level head. He's a beast. And the Chiefs are going back and they will be facing the San Francisco 49ers.
Yep. The 49ers beat the Lions 34-31. But this was a crazy game because the Lions were actually up. The Lions were wildly up, I would say, against the 49ers, all the way through the half?
Oh, yeah. 24-10, right? 17-point game? 17-point game all the way until the start of the second half. The one thing with this, dude, and I love Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell's he should win Coach of the Year this year. He led the Lions to a 12-5 record. He made it all the way to the NFC Championship with the Detroit Lions. They just couldn't finish the job. We talk about experience a lot with football teams and coaches and organizations. The Lions don't have a lot of experience. First time in the NFC Championship since 1991. And at the end of the day, the 49ers, they've been there. They've been there. They've been successful. Kyle Shanahan is also a great coach. They also have great playmakers on both sides of the ball for San Fran, and they know how to come back and win. Talk about another quarterback there, Brock Purdy. What do you think your thoughts on Brock Purdy were during this game?
I like Brock Purdy. He's always been a bit of a favorite character of mine, just with the Mr. Irrelevant tag, and then coming in, starting a whole season this year, and just like having phenomenal success being a starting quarterback in the NFL. Also, I low-key have always fucked with the 49ers just a little bit, mostly because of George Kittle. I think George Kittle, especially this season, is the best tight end in the league. Not just for what he does, like receptions and pass game wise, but like he gets down and dirty and he blocks. You know what I mean? Like he does it on all facets, run game, pass game, everything. And so I like the 49ers. I like that they won. I would have also liked to kind of see the Lions win, just as, like we've said before, it'd be a little bit of a new face. They also got a couple Iowa guys and Jack Campbell and Sam Laporta. So, like, you know, my Iowa fetish is satisfied there. But the biggest thing is, like you said, Dan Campbell is not an offensive coach. He's not a defensive coach and special teams, whatever. But, like, that's what you need sometimes when you're making crucial in-game decisions. Because when they go for it on fourth down twice, when they probably should have just kicked the field goal, the first time I can understand it a little more, like, okay, be aggressive, go for it, you know, like, yeah, this is what Dan Campbell does. We love to see it. But he didn't get it. And the Niners go down and score. The second time was like, dude, what are you doing? Take the points. This could win you the game right here. Like, why not take it?
Mm-hmm. Dude, and that's the thing. So Dan Campbell, he's reigned true to his formula all year. There's two facts that I want to say about this. Dan Campbell, he was 17 for 20 in the regular season when going for it, and 4th and 4 or shorter. And 17 for 20, that's 85%. And which is insane, right? That's efficient right there. The second thing is Michael Badgley, their kicker, is only 77% over 40 yards or more this year. So I understand, like, you go back to analytics, I get it. 85% is a hell of a lot better than 77%. But on the caveat is, I think it was the second quarter, instead of going for it on 4th and 3, he kicked the field goal, which was very uncharacteristic of Dan Campbell. He kicked the field goal, and then when it came down into the second half, he decided to go for it on 4th and 6 and 4th and 4. Like, I don't understand that aspect. Like, okay, like, I get where you're coming from, but if you're going to stay true to who you've been and what got you here all year, you got to do it through that whole game. Because instead of kicking that field goal and going up 17, you could have got that first down. and you could have went up 24 right before half, and that would have probably been the nail in the coffin for the San Francisco 49ers. It's hard to come back from 24 points. And so that's where I'm a little frustrated. And it comes back to, hey, Ben Johnson, you're the OC. Get in his fucking ear now and tell him, hey, no, we need to take the points. Because we give Ben Johnson a lot of credit, and we gave him a lot of credit in the beginning of this show. But this is the moment where you're like, hey, coach, let's not go for it here. You know?
Yeah. And I mean, we don't know what happened either, though, because he very well could have. He could have said, yeah, I don't know about that one, coach. Like, I don't know if I'd advise that. And it's ultimately not his decision to make, you know? Like, Dan Campbell's going to do what Dan Campbell wants to do. A lot of the times what will happen is, like, depending on the situation, on a second down and stuff, the offensive coordinator will be like, hey, do I have 2 plays here? You know, like, this is going to affect how I call my third down play. Do I have 2 plays, or do I got to get this first on third down? If that conversation doesn't happen and you get into a 4th down situation, sometimes the head coach is debating it, and they'll ask, do you have a play that's good for this? Like, can we get 3 yards? Can we get 4 yards? Can we get like, do you like a play? Do you have a solid, like, you know, sometimes, like, because our head coach will do that. He'll be like, do you have a good play here? Or do you want to run a certain play? Like, you think something's going to work? And sometimes we may or may not want to do something, and he'll say, nope, ultimately I'm the head coach and I make the decisions. And the way it went with Dan Campbell, it sounds like after not getting that initial 4th down, he was trying to make up for his own mistake and being overly aggressive on the next 2 4th downs. Like, once you don't get the first one, you miss a field goal and it bites you in the ass a little bit, you kind of start to second guess yourself and be like, well, shit, now I have to make up for the slack instead of just being a little aggressive early on.
Which I agree 100%. But at the end of the day, too, if you kick that field goal, you make it a 7-point game because the Niners had the lead. They went down and they scored that touchdown, and it would have been a tied game. But there was also some missed playing opportunities on that last drive of the game. Like running the ball on 3rd and 4 or 3rd and goal. Are you crazy with a minute left? Are you nuts, Dan? Like, you don't run that ball because you throw it. Either you throw it and you complete it for a touchdown, or Jared Goff sends it out the back of the end zone where no one else can get it. And he ran it with David Montgomery, which, I mean, you got to think, did David say, coach, I can get this. Trust me, I got this. Like, I'm going to get this in the end zone.
Everyone is going to say that.
Right.
Too, though, you know, like, you're never going to ask a running back about, like, you can ask kickers, and sometimes they'll give you, like, I don't know, it's a little far, it's a little windy, something or other. But, like, if you ask a running back, hey, can you get this in the end zone? They're not going to say no. Like, every running back is going to have at least enough ego to be like, yeah, I can get this fucker in the end zone, no problem.
For sure. But that also caused them to lose their last time out, which came to onside kick at the end of the game, which ultimately lost them the football game. It was a beautiful pass by Jared Goff on 4th and goal in the back of the end zone, which brought it within 3. But if they had that timeout, they stopped the Niners. The Niners would have had to punt. But at the end of the day, man, like, it didn't happen. And it comes back to the Dan Campbell. It comes back to the leader of men coaching versus the offensive-minded genius. And that's what we saw in the NFC Championship. Kyle Shanahan has been known as an offensive-minded genius his whole career. Dan Campbell has been known as a player of men, or a coach of men. And at the end of the day, like, the offensive-minded genius won that match.
And there's definitely, like, a need for both on a football team. A leader of men can be more than just a coach, though, too, because you got to argue that, like, Patrick Mahomes, per se, is a leader of men on the Chiefs. Typically, it's your Brock Purdy, a leader of men for the 49ers, or even George Kittle being a veteran, like, high-profile Pro Bowler on the 49ers, like, being that team's leader. So leadership can come from multiple places and stuff on a team, but the aspect of offensive-minded and defensive-minded and just, like, game management-minded people has to come from somewhere, and those have to come from coaches. And Dan Campbell can be a leader of men, like, and that can be completely fine and Super Bowl winning. But that means that he needs an offensive coordinator that can give him that offensive piece. And on top of that, he has to be able to listen and trust him. Like I said, we don't know whose exact decision it was. We don't know if he said, hey, maybe don't go for these couple fourth downs. We don't know if he overrode that. We don't know if the OC liked those calls. But if it was a Dan Campbell deciding over the offensive coordinator in those situations, you got to know your place on that team. If your place is being the leader of those men and the offensive, analytic, whatever is coming from your OC, you need to let your OC do what the OC needs to do.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And so we talked a lot about the Lions' miscues and a lot about the Lions. Let's talk about the 49ers. They were literally down 24-10. And a guy that everybody says is a game manager or shouldn't be an NFL starting quarterback literally wheeled and dealed in that second half. Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy looked amazing in that second half. And you can't tell me he didn't. He had probably one of the best second halves that a quarterback's had all year, yet maybe the last 5 years. And I think he really, really, really solidified himself. Hey, I am a quarterback and I belong here. I am the starting quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. And he's about to be the youngest quarterback in the Super Bowl ever.
Yeah, that's crazy. And some of that is probably due to halftime adjustments, just like with Kyle Shanahan being the great offensive mastermind that he is, he was definitely watching that entire first half, breaking it down, went into that locker room, sat down with Brock and was like, hey, here's exactly what we're doing, how we're going to fix the issues we're having, and how we're going to come back out and dominate now that we've made these changes. And at the same time, like, I'm sure there was just a little bit of a, hey, let loose a little bit, play. Like, this is the NFC Championship, but, like, we're down a bunch here, and you know what? Sometimes you just have to let go a little bit and be like, my fate is my fate. Like, what is there to lose? You're down 17 points. What else are you losing by just going out there and just playing football?
Oh, 100%. So I saw this thing too. And it wasn't just Brock's passing. It was his ability to get out of the pocket in that second half. He ran.
He ran more than Lamar.
Do you know how many yards Brock Purdy ran that full game?
Oh, man, I do not.
Okay. Well,
was he 70s, 60s, 70s?
74 yards, which Brock Purdy is not known as a running quarterback. But in that first half, he only had 20 of those yards on one scramble. That second half, he had 48 yards rushing, dude. 48 yards rushing, and he didn't look like prime Tom Brady. He looked like prime Mike Vick. I don't know if I want to go that far, but like he really, really out there looked really good and looked really sharp. And that's what Kyle Shanahan truly wanted out of his starting quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo was not necessarily ever going to be his prototype quarterback he wanted in San Francisco. His prototype, he thought he drafted in Trey Lance, a guy that had a strong arm but could move, but Trey Lance was never accurate enough for that offense. Guess who can do a little bit of both? Brock Purdy. He's pretty accurate, and he can move when he needs to. I wouldn't call him a scrambling running back, but he can get out of the pocket. He's not going to truck somebody like Josh Allen. He doesn't have blazing speed like Lamar Jackson or Justin Fields, but he can move. And he moved, and that was a big solidifying factor of why the 49ers are in the Super Bowl.
Definitely. That is definitely a huge factor. And most quarterbacks need to scramble a little bit. Yeah, not everyone is going to be a Justin Fields, a Lamar Jackson, a Josh Allen, who's like capable of getting over 100 yards a game just using their legs. But even Tom Brady, as great as he was mostly a pocket passing guy. Like, even he used his feet once in a while. You know what I mean? Like, every once in a while, shit just breaks down, and you just got to run.
Yeah.
And Brock showed that he was very capable of doing that successfully.
Oh, 100%. And, unfortunately, I'm cheering, and I'm not mad because, I really wanted the Lions-Ravens Super Bowl, right? But at the end of the day, fine, the Chiefs are going. But it doesn't mean I have to support Kansas City. I am definitely supporting the Bang, bang, Niner gang. I'm showing up my t-shirt I just bought for this year's Super Bowl. I'm pretty pumped. And I think it's going to be a very, very, very fun Super Bowl. And I'm hoping Brock can prove the doubters wrong and win it again.
Yeah, I'm very excited to watch this Super Bowl. I hope that Brock goes out there and tears it up and that the 49ers are just hitting on all facets, and it's going to be a good game. But we will talk about that game in next week's episode, as we have a little bit of a break here before Super Bowl is going to be played. So tune in next week to hear our prequel or whatever you want to call it, release preview. That's the word. Preview on that game. But until then, that's all I got to say.
Yeah, guys, go like, subscribe, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, you know the deal. I got 2 words to say, and that's it. Bear down.